Sea turtles play an important role in keeping fish breeding areas healthy. They slowly graze the reef and seafloor, keeping these areas clean and tidy for fish to spawn. Well, we have a lot of great places to go today. First, we'll travel to Kauai, where ancient Hawaiian history is alive in a modern garden. Then we'll enjoy big bouquets of dramatic tropical flowers, plus my favorite plants and answers to your questions today on The Coastal Gardener. Hawaiian history is deeply entwined with the sea, the landscape, and the plants. Nowhere is that more evident than in the Limahuli Valley of the National Tropical Botanical Garden, where ancient Hawaiian culture is living and growing within a modern garden. Now, Mike, what an incredible view that we have here of the valley.
This is all of Limahuli Valley behind us. It is an intact ahupua'a, which in Hawaiian culture, the islands were divided by the high chiefs based on the valleys. So you have this pie shape from ridgetop to ridgetop and from the back of the valley out to the reef. And Limahuli is a fully intact ahupua'a that the stream was never diverted. The archaeological sites are fairly intact. This valley sustained quite a large population when the native Hawaiians were still living in here.
That's really incredible, and it's amazing to think that this isn't a reconstruction. We are actually looking at real, honest-to-God Hawaiian era terraces, and even you were saying that some of these rocks here, all these rocks are like actual historic remnants.
That's right. This is the base of an old Hawaiian house site.
Wow.
And the lined up rock stones like this are all over our hillsides and are all through the valley, all the way to the back of the waterfall.
When you look at this garden, this is very unique because it has a kind of like, it basically has its roots right in native Polynesian and Hawaiian history.
Yeah, we've planted a lot of things here, the plants that were very important to the Hawaiians. Of course, the hala trees occur naturally here, but we have all the other food plants that were very important to the Hawaiians, many varieties here in Limahuli Garden.
Now, Mike, I can see all this wonderful taro growing here. Is this exactly the way the ancient Hawaiians would have grown it?
That's right. When water was available, taro was grown in a wetland field like this. All Hawaiian varieties of taro can be grown on dry ground, but it is more productive to grow it in a wetland field, as you see here. So these are the same fields that have been cultivating taro for 1,000 years.
1,000 years, that's really amazing. Now, are there different sorts of types of taro, or is it just one type?
There are many different varieties. There's several hundred known varieties of Hawaiian taro. We had different uses. I mean, they were all used as food sources, but some were better used as table taro, whereas some were better used for making into an important staple food here that we call poi. Culturally, taro is a very important food crop in Hawaiian culture. Taro is the older brother of the Hawaiian people.
Now, which part of the actual plant would you be eating on this?
Okay, so let me pull one up and I'll show you.
Okay. Rooted in there really well. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
So, although people call it the taro root, technically it's a corm.
Okay.
It's a swollen part, I guess like a radish might be. It's
Okay,
a swollen
part of the stem.
Of the stem. And we would cut this part off here. This is what we call the huli. This gets replanted, so you cut it just below the stem line, trim off the leaves, and this part you dry it out a couple of days, and this gets planted into a new field.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you're not really actually destroying the plant altogether. You're just trimming that off and making a whole new plant out of it.
Regrows again, completely
wow.
regrows. The leaves can be cut off again. They need to be cooked as well, but we'll wrap fish and pork in this with tea leaf and steam that, and that's a whole different food item in itself.
Okay.
This part we cook for a couple hours, steam or boil. Steaming is better though, it maintains the firmness of the taro, and then you peel off the skin, and depending on the variety, it can be white or purple or sort of beige, and it can be eaten just like that. As I say, it has a mild sweetness, but it's much like a potato. Or then we'll mash it up, adding water to make it smooth, and that's what we call poi, which is a very important food to us.
It's kind of like a soft paste, almost like.
Right, like a soft paste, similar to a mashed potato. You can't just plant taro in sitting water because the water temperature needs to be low. If the water warms up, the taro bulb will rot. So the water needs to move through slowly. This is a natural fertilization process. Water brings silt from the stream in, rejuvenates the soil, goes through and goes back into the stream when it's done.
So there was really a lot of eco-management going on here. I mean, it's so complex. It's even more, almost as complex as like a modern hydroponic system.
That's correct.
Now, Mike, this is a plant that I would think of when I think of Hawaii, I would think of sugarcane. And I love the beautiful black stems on here. Now you're saying that these are all different varieties of sugarcane.
Yes, the Hawaiians developed many different varieties, several dozen different varieties of sugarcane. Sugarcane was used, well, the leaves were used for thatching huts, and the juices from the stem were used, well, they just would chew the stem to get the juice out, to extract the juice as sort of a sweet drink to make. But also it was used in medicinal, for medicinal purposes.
So this is something that the Polynesians would have brought with them.
Yes.
All the way here, and it would have been what they would call a canoe plant.
Exactly right. It's one of the 24 or so canoe plants brought to these islands.
Now what are the other canoe plants, as it were?
Well, taro was one of them, and the ulu, or the breadfruit, was another. And another very important one was the tea plant, what we call tea leaf.
Oh, and I see that you have some tea leaf over here. Now, why would that be important? It just looks like a pretty ornamental plant.
Well, you know, the juices from the root were fermented into a pretty strong alcoholic drink, but not by the Hawaiians, by the early whalers.
Oh.
The leaf here was really important. The Hawaiians used to use these leaves to make into raincoats.
Okay.
They would roll them up and braid them into footwear. And this is our version of aluminum foil. You can wrap food in this, put it in the underground oven, the imu, and cook fish and other things, and it will not burn. When you look at them closely, they're full of fiber.
Yeah.
And so it makes them really, really strong.
Okay, so they're very strong, long-lasting. They're kind of nice and thick, so they don't tear easily.
That's right.
So they could be used for all sorts of things.
That's
okay.
right. They're very waxy, so they don't burn easily. And individual leaves were braided together to make a big, heavy draping raincoat.
Okay, and now they would also be fairly easy to propagate because you could just take stem cuttings and then move them along. So they could take a little stem with them, harvest the leaves off, and then just keep replicating it.
That's correct. And even today, it's you know, a lot of folks who live here in the islands might not necessarily know all the different native plants, but everybody knows how to use many of our canoe plants. And tea leaf is used for cooking even now. Ornamentally, people will take a cutting like this, put it in a fancy vase and let it root out, and it will do very well in an office or in your home.
Well, now that we've had a chance to enjoy traditional Hawaiian culture through its plants, it's time for us to enjoy an elaborate banquet full of traditional Hawaiian delicacies and hula dancing here at the Princeville Resort.
Hi Dave, I'm Susan from Cincinnati. I'm away on vacation in beautiful Kauai, paradise, and I have a question. How do I keep my houseplants alive while I'm gone for 12 days?
Shouldn't you have asked this question before you went on your vacation? Now, just like you prepare for your trip by packing your bags, you also have to prepare your house for your absence. The key is keeping them moist longer. Start by giving your houseplants a good thorough drink, either in the sink or out on the patio. Then soak a terry cloth towel or two in water and place them in the bottom of your bathtub. After the pots are drained, bring them indoors and arrange them in your bathtub in contact with the terry cloth towel. The towel will slowly release humidity, and coupled with the cool, dark interior of your bathroom, keep your house moist longer while you relax on the beach in Hawaii.